So, as I've mentioned here before, when I first moved back to this area, got interested in learning how to bank balls, and it rapidly became my favorite thing to do. Was not just try to learn it, but to play bank ball itself, my favorite game. But also about, I want to say like 2012 or something like that, maybe a little bit before that, I was reminded of some of the stuff that I learned from Hal Houle about his center to edge aiming. And it was because Stan Sheffield put out his DVD of his version of that. And I buy pool shit, I do. So I bought that, I looked at that and said, well, it's different than what I know or learned, whatever. But let's mess with it. And I did. I messed with it for quite a while. I like messing with stuff. But because I play so much banks, and as I said before, no aiming system is going to work for banks. It's going to be an approximation. No aiming system, except just a couple, on a perfectly straight-in shot with no side spin, are going to be anything better than an approximation. I'm fine with that. Close is better than not close, right? So here I am, when I'm practicing my 9-ball, I'll go and my version of this pivoting thing doesn't involve two lines, it involves one line. Center to the left edge of the 4, pivot to my left, and shoot the ball in like that. That's what my version is. It is not the real CTE. It is not the real Pro 1, which is the shove-it version of CTE. It is not. I never said it was. What I have said, though, is that it's a bullshit system that doesn't work, but it works. I was just messing with it. When I'm playing 9-ball, or I was playing a little bit of one pocket at the time, too. And it was always interesting because it worked a lot better than it should. But when I would play bank pool, I very, 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 very quickly found out that it just absolutely doesn't work with going center to edge like I've been doing. Going center to edge, there was no place I could pivot that would make the 9-ball cross-side in this case. It just wasn't going to work. But I still wanted that motion. I wanted to get in the habit of doing the pivoting motion, pivoting to my right. See, I wanted that. So what I ended up doing was, instead of lining up center to edge, I would go center to some point, depending on the shot and my experience and all that. I do have to cut this 9 to my right a little bit, but I wouldn't go center to the left edge of the cue ball. Depending on what the heck's going on, in this case, I'm going center to about 2/3 of the 9, and on this side of the vertical axis. Just not because there's any science. If it's a bullshit system that is just being made up, I can make up shit as well as anybody. And that's what I was doing. I just wanted to get used to the motion. So I would line center to that about 1/3, pivot to my left, and then again shoot straight just like you do with the regular stuff. I look, yeah, that's cool or interesting at least. And I fell out of the habit of doing that to maintain that motion on my banks because I wasn't doing the pivoting anymore on my regular shots for the most part. I do always jump back and forth between things, but for the most part I was. So I started doing, I guess, mostly like just overlap on banks. And at that point I've been banking for over a decade and just had a feel for stuff. Bank the 7, which is a pretty easy shot, so watch me miss it. I'm not aiming the 7 at this point on the rail and how do I get it there or whatever. It's just look at the freaking shot. I know where the 7 is, clearly, the cue ball is. I know this pocket's right here because it's a 9-foot table and I've been playing on. I've talked before also about swapping table sizes and how that can mess with your head. If I get on a 10-foot table and I'm looking at this view right here, which is all I need to see on a 9-footer, But on a 10-foot table, this pocket's not here, it's back here. And it's gonna make me miss, unless I'm somehow incorporating where this pocket is, well, in this case it would be here, into all of my, calculations. Calculations is probably a little bit of a strong word. But where was I? So the other day, I started messing with the pivoting again on some of my regular shots. Practicing 8-ball. I mentioned before practicing 8-ball. And I've also mentioned here in a recent video that I'm practicing doing what one of the first ever, pool guru type people in my life ever told me was, don't use center ball. Don't use vertical axis, don't use horizontal axis. Hit top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. This is what the guy said, and back then it was like, oh, that's cool. And so I was messing with that, and I would see, okay, how does that work if I'm going to be pivoting? What do I have to do with that? And it turned out that this whole pivoting thing, and to my mind, I think I've said in the video before, it's going to get me close, and at that point, my inner pool player says, well, shit, Dave, that's pretty close. Let me go ahead and finish a shot for you. I really and truly think that's what happens. I think that's what happens with most adherents of almost any aiming system. It's getting close, and then whatever inner pool player they have is taking over. And maybe they're not even aware that that's happening. I'm not aware that that's happening. I just know it kind of must be happening. Anyway, I was messing with the pivoting and hitting various parts of the cue ball, and just kind of seeing what might happen with that. And what I stumbled onto was something I very vaguely remember from a billion years ago. What you have to remember is, as I've said, I've already said it in this video, and I've said it many times, the whole pivoting thing is bullshit. It doesn't work, but it works. At this point, I can say anything I want about it. I can do anything. I can add any prerequisites or requirements or whatever to these rules of this system. I'm not going to hurt it because it doesn't work anyway, even though it does work. What I ended up doing was saying, you know what? When I was trying to pivot my bank shots earlier, years ago, it just never did line up. I couldn't find a way to line up the center of the cue ball to either edge of this 5 and get it to bank back here, for example. It just didn't work. It was too much of a pivot to get it. And then I'm shooting like this. This is probably an exaggeration, but it was just weird. What I ended up doing, let's try this on a bank shot instead of lining up center to edge, either one of these edges. Well, in this case, I want the 5 to go here, so it's a slight cut to my right, so I'll be going off the left edge. But instead of doing that, because it ended up being too much of a pivot, I'm going center to center. On bank shots, I'm going center to center. And then I'm going to pivot towards this left edge. There are no specific details or anything. This is all, or at least 99% just feel and experience and stuff. My inner pool player knows when to stop pivoting and how to, I've talked about this kind of stuff before. So this is what I do. I'm going to miss a shot by 100 miles because I'm talking to you. But I want to bank this 5 in that pocket. I'm going center to center. I'm going to pivot to my left towards this edge, towards the left edge. And once I get down there, and then I just stroke it straight. And that's what happens. Hey, I made a shot. So, for a lot of shots, it works. Works as well as any other aiming system does work. And, well, that's pretty darn cool. Of course, there's only one shot. But let's try some other shots. Let's cross the 5 in there this time. For bank shots, I'm not doing center to edge. I'm doing center to center. It's going to be a cut to my right, so I'm going off the left edge. So I go center to center, pivot this way again, Just do it. And my inner pool player is in charge of this stuff, of all this. Me, my conscious self, I'm in charge of this. I'm planting this foot right, if I remember how to do that. Planting this foot right. Now at this point, I'm done, and now my inner pool player, who I've called Obi-Wan Moscone, is in charge of all the shit. Of everything that happens here to the pivot. And just go down and get into place and put the ball in. Well, okay, so that's cool too. I found that as well as this bullshit pivoting system works for regular shots, even though, again, it shouldn't work, does a hell of a lot better than it should. I found that banks work just as well if I go center to center instead of center to edge. That is only if my resulting bank ends up being a half ball hit or thicker. See if I can explain that, set up something. So if I want to bank this 10 into this side, just because I've been banking ball for a long time, I know that is a thinner than a half ball hit. So everything I just got into talking about, center to center and pivoting, that's not going to work. It's not going to give me enough of a pivot. And I don't have a new point lined up for this. Maybe at this point, I can go back to the regular pivot. Center to left edge. Pivot to my left. I don't think that's going to be enough. It doesn't look to me like that's going to be enough. And it's not. But if it's a half ball hit or less, probably about it's probably about a half ball hit, then I can go back to my center to center, because it's a bank shot, pivot to my left. I keep setting up a sample to pivot to my left. But maybe that still wasn't good enough. Aiming systems are an approximation. And I know that I talked about, when I talked about it in my aiming systems video, is you can't fall in love with it. You can't go, I pivoted, therefore I don't have to do anything else. You still have to do stuff. You still have to have a little bit of common sense. Your inner pool player you're supposed to be in charge of the shot in this case, but what if he smoked crack that morning or whatever? You still have to, I can't just say, well, I pivoted and therefore I don't have to do anything else. No, you have to have some sense. When I went to shoot that 10, I didn't think it was going to go. The last one that I missed by 50 miles or whatever, I didn't think it was going to go. And, I was right. So I should have done some type of an override. Hey, Obi, that's not going to work. This shot right here is almost dead. It's almost a dead shot to make it right here. If I want to shoot it harder, I think it can become a little bit of a cut. But if I just want to shoot just a firm speed, center to center, because it's a bank shot, but this time I'm not really pivoting. I can almost shoot this like a straight in shot and go center to edge. I'm just not really pivoting. But if I want to keep that motion in place, still put my foot in the right place, then come down. I'm not really pivoting. Everything is here. I'm not really pivoting on the shot at all. And then they just do fun stuff, right? I like messing with shit. Keeps life interesting for me. I want to bank to 11 back here. Then bank shot. So center to center. Pivot to my left. I happen to know on this kind of a shot right here, these back cut banks that are kind of hit pocket speed, I need to put outside angles on the shot, in this case top left. I happen to know that just from banking all this time. So I'm going to do it. I'm not going to go, I don't have to do that because I pivoted. No, I still have to do that. Because all pivoting is going to do is get me close. All aiming system is going to do, any aiming system is going to do is get me close. So I'll do that, center to center, put it to my left, put some top left on the shot, get it at a slower speed, and blah, 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 blah. If I had the exact same shot, for some reason, I was feeling especially reckless, and I said, well, I'll just cut the 9 down here. This is the kind of shit I would do back before I started banking, when I was scared to bank anything. And to be fair, a lot of that was on bar boxes, and almost certainly with bigger pockets. But I would just cut damn ball in. But for this discussion, I'm talking about pivoting. So, because it's a cut, not a bank, I am going to go center to the right edge of the 9. I'm going to pivot to my right in this case. So I have to have all the whole inner pool player shit in charge of how much you pivot and all that. If you're putting English on, you have to, allow for that bullshit. I'm going to miss a shot by 1,000 miles. But it's still close, and it's closer than maybe my inner pool player was calling, "Hey Dave, you're going to scratch, you idiot." Maybe that was what was happening there. Try a little bit more of a sane shot and overcut. Anyway, I said I was going to miss. Now you can dismiss the whole video and go, "He fucking missed. I'm not going to listen to him." This kind of stuff happens. I don't have a bank on this ball. I have it twice. I mean, I could cut to 9, but that's boring. I could double bank to 9 because it's a bank. It doesn't matter if it's 2 banks or 2 rails or 3 rails or whatever. Just because it's a bank, I'm going to go center to center, pivot to my left, shoot the shot, and hope that happens. Hope that happens. That didn't happen. That's okay. This is not really a good shot. This is not like the new way I'm going to shoot, or even the new way I'm going to shoot banks. I still am mostly just about trying to find this overlap and find the spot on the 5 in this case, and hit that ball and not get a kiss. Oh, you didn't know I knew that shot. I didn't either. That's what I'm still trying to do. But just for right now, I'm messing with this pivoting into my bank stuff. Pivot to my right, just a little bit. And I had a problem with this shot earlier today too. I'm having an optical illusion on this kind of a shot right here, where it looks like it's actually going to come short if nothing else. But I'm going long on it quite a bit. And I don't know why. Maybe because I suck. Maybe because the whole pivoting aiming system is bullshit that doesn't work, even though it works sometimes. It doesn't work all the time. Things like that are one of the reasons that I'll never start doing that 100% of the time. Because I felt like I was going to make that shot both times and missed it by quite a bit both times. The way that I know how to shoot the shots is just, not really doing any aiming system except that ghost ball. And still missing, but I didn't miss by as much. But I'm going to stop the video because I have to, I gotta go to the bathroom, what I have to do.